In this episode, we're going to talk about something that many women never actually are taught growing up, and that's their menstrual cycle and how it affects their energy, mood, productivity, and overall health throughout the month. Because for most women, the only thing that we're ever really told about our cycle is that it means having a period once a month and possibly dealing with PMS symptoms along the way. But what many women don't realize is that their body actually moves through 4 different hormonal phases every single month. And each of those phases affects things like energy levels, brain chemistry, metabolism, and even how the body responds to stress. And so when we don't understand those shifts, it's very easy to start living in a way that constantly works against our hormones instead of supporting them. So after working with so many women who feel exhausted, inflamed, and disconnected from their bodies, I myself have noticed something interesting. Many of them are trying incredibly hard to feel better. They're eating healthier, they're trying new routines, they're listening to a variety of health podcasts, they're looking for answers anywhere they can find them. But at the same time, they're often feeling like their bodies are just really unpredictable, or like their energy and mood changes in ways that they don't fully understand, which is exactly why I wanted to bring today's guest onto the podcast, because understanding your menstrual cycle and learning how to work with your body instead of constantly pushing against it can completely change the way you experience health and your hormones. So today, I am joined with Amy Dave, who has been a physician assistant for over 25 years and now specializes in helping women align their daily habits with their monthly cycles through something called cycle syncing. So, before we dive into the conversation, Amy, can you tell listeners where they can learn more about you and download your wellness guide?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I love being here. So I was one of those people. I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I was exercising, and I was always exhausted and tired. So when I learned about cycle syncing and I was able to fix my health, I wanted to help other women do the same thing. So I created a guide. It's called Live a Life Without PMS. You can find it on my website. It's thewealthofwellness.com. And it goes through basically what the 4 phases of the cycle are and some tips that you can start implementing in each phase.
Perfect. All right. And we'll have all of this in the show notes as well. So you guys can just click on it and drop down below and click on all the lovely links and resources for today's episode. So Amy, for 25 years, you were a physician assistant. So I want to start by hearing a little bit about your journey. What led you from traditional medicine into women's wellness and cycle syncing specifically?
So as a PA, I knew I wanted to help people live healthier lives with preventive medicine. So things like diet and exercise. But I learned pretty quickly that you don't have time in a 15-minute appointment slot to teach people about these things, right? We can make some quick recommendations, and they used to come back in 3 or 6 months with the same problems. And again, like I said, I thought I was eating healthy. I thought I was exercising. But once I learned about cycle syncing, I realized that I was not eating enough. So I was having too many salads, but not enough nutrients.
Yes.
And I was exercising too much. So 45 minutes of cardio was raising my cortisol, which is a stress hormone, right? It promotes weight gain and trouble sleeping and all kinds of fun things. So when I learned about cycle syncing, and my main goal was to get rid of my PMS symptoms. It was just, I had terrible symptoms every month. I wasn't feeling great. It just like I lost a week every month.
Which is a good goal to have. Like,
yeah. So that was my first goal. But once I felt better physically with cycle syncing and I kept doing it, I actually had to eat more and exercise less for me to see results. And that's when I knew I wanted to teach it to other women. So I became a coach about 3 years ago, and that's what I do.
Awesome. So, do you feel like diving any deeper into what you were experiencing before you discovered cycle syncing?
Sure. So I was having a lot of cramps,
Hmm.
feeling bloated, irritability. I was
Hmm.
always exhausted. I was stressed out. And I had a lot of heavy bleeding every month. And I
Okay.
was just tired of all of it. So when I started with cycle syncing, I just started with diet and exercise. And basically, your body goes through 4 phases every month. So you want to vary the foods that you eat and the exercises you do based on where you are in the cycle.
Yeah.
And I started doing this. Within 4 months, all my symptoms went away.
Nice.
Yeah. And then a few more months later, my migraines went away. I was sleeping better. I was waking up refreshed. So all these
Yeah.
things kept like my mental clarity came back. Like I didn't even, I was like, wow, I had such brain fog and it's gone. Um, my son made a comment one day. He was like, Mom, you don't yell as often as you used to. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so it was a lot of things that came about just because I wanted to get rid of my cramps and my heavy bleeding. I
Yeah.
never thought it was going to do all this other stuff for me.
That's great. So basically you kind of like just kind of experimented, or like how did you actually go from like eliminate, like what was the turning point where you realized that, if I do XYZ over here that these symptoms clear up? Like where was that connection happening?
So when I went back to school for my master's degree, I got an advanced certificate in nutrition.
Okay.
And that was the first time I had learned about cycle syncing.
Yes.
And so the lady who taught the lecture, I bought her book. Um, and it sat on my nightstand for several months collecting
Hmm.
dust before I actually opened it and read it. But when I did read it, she went through all the different foods that you should be eating in each phase and the exercises that
Yes.
are, you should be doing. And I really enjoyed her book, and I started with that one. And since then, I mean, this was 5 years ago. So since then, I've read several other books. I've done research.
Yeah.
Um, you'll see lots of wellness influencers talking about cycle syncing online these days. There's a whole bunch of charts on Pinterest. Like
Yeah.
if you are a visual person and you want, charts and things like that with information. So it was just a learning process that, you know, led me to live a better life.
Yeah. And I think too, like us as coaches now, especially moving from the medical like arena, like that corporate America, like health system, and moving into coaching, like we're doing this because we too had the same problems and we dug deeper than the answers we were receiving on the surface. And I feel like by doing that, we can help women just that much more deeper, because we ourselves have been through it. So there's always a book, there's always something that was like that one turning point that just took you completely off. So awesome. I'm really glad that that happened for you too.
Yeah.
Okay. So for somebody who's never heard of cycle syncing before, in the most simplest terms, how would you explain it to them?
Yeah. So your body goes through almost like the 4 seasons in one month.
Mhm. Yes.
And I'll start with your bleeding because that's the easiest one for everyone to understand.
Yeah.
When you're bleeding, it's like the winter season. So you want to dress warm. You want to eat warm foods. You want to have like soups and stews and roasted vegetables, right? Like a salad may
Yeah.
not taste so great that week. Your body needs extra iron and zinc because you're losing blood, right? So that's your winter season. The week after that is called your follicular phase, which is the spring season. So your
Mhm.
energy is rising. That's the time when your brain is really creative and, you can plan out new projects and this and that. And you can start doing cardio.
Yeah.
The next phase is ovulation, which a lot of people know if they're trying to conceive and they're tracking ovulation. So you get a surge of both estrogen and testosterone at this time. So you have maximal energy this week. You're naturally outgoing. I mean, your skin is glowing.
We
Things,
all
life is
we all
good.
love that phase.
Yes,
We all love
it's the
that week.
best. Yes. Yeah, that's when you feel great. You have the
Yeah.
energy. You want to be social. You're better at communicating. Um, So that's that week for your like highest intensity workouts and your most important conversations or presentations or something, right? Like that's when you want to plan it out. And then of course we have the last phase of the cycle is the PMS week or the luteal phase, where if you are taking care of yourself, you shouldn't have any symptoms because PMS is common, but it's not normal.
Yes.
And that's an important distinction. So if you're feeling well, you should be all right. But if you're not taking care of yourself, this is the time when you get the cramps, the bloating, the acne, the irritability, right? Peaks. You're exhausted. All of these things come out. You might be more depressed or anxious than usual in the luteal phase. And those are all symptoms that you should pay attention to because your body's asking for help.
Yeah, 100%. So that kind of also, I kind of want to squirrel for a second here, but that leads us into our next question, which, growing up, we believe that, PMS is just something that we just have to deal with, that we have to live with. So the question is, why do you think that belief is so common? And before you answer that, I'm glad that we're actually doing this today because literally last night I had a conversation with my daughter about everything that you just said. She's 11, so she's like on the cusp. We're kind of like, what's going to happen in the next, 6 months or so. And one of the things I told her, I was like, once you start doing the cycle stuff, like we're really going to have to pay attention to what you're eating because I have a history of migraines. There's anemia that runs in the family. And I'm like, you really have to pay attention to what you're eating, how you're exercising. I was like, you really got to clean up your act, girly, because she's a Takis fan and she's like a chips and soda person and like sweets and candies and sours. And I'm like, you gotta stop doing all that once this happens. Like, so enjoy it now. So I'm glad that like we're doing this today, and I'm glad that this is the conversation we're having right now. So, all right, going back to the question, why do you think that this belief is so common?
So I can tell you, as a healthcare provider, we are not taught this in PA school. I know doctors are not taught it. We have very little nutrition training in our PA school, medical school. So
do you want to hit on that for a second?
Sure.
Okay, because that's something that like I have been told many, many times, and like I was on the cusp of going to PA school, so haven't been in it, but I've been told many times that nutrition is just like non-existent if you're doing PA or doctor route. It's like I've been told it's only like a week-long course in a semester of the entire 4 to 8 years that you're in med school. Probably. So, okay, touch on that.
Yeah, it's not even, we don't even get like a week in nutrition. You get like, when you're studying cardiology, you get like a 2-minute lecture on these are the foods that, have salt that can raise your blood pressure. Or when you're in your diabetes, you're learning about diabetes and stuff. These are the foods that have sugar that you should avoid. Like it's very basic. And it wasn't until I went back to school to get my advanced certificate in nutrition that I realized how little I knew about it.
Okay.
So that's why we have the dietitians. They're so important, but I guess they're not utilized as often as they should be.
Yeah. Okay.
First thing, we didn't learn about it. So that's the first challenge is even your doctor doesn't know about this. The second challenge is all the medical studies and research up until very recently is done on either men or postmenopausal women, because the researchers thought that the hormone fluctuations were going to give too many variables and this and that. So we're not even included in studies.
Yeah.
Right. That's the second issue. And the third thing, now it's a lot easier with digital, technologies and things, but we were just taught to track our period, right? Yeah. Like it should come once a week. It should last about 5 days and you should be fine. Yeah. And if it's not like, you might have PCOS or you might have other things. It wasn't really an issue, right? It was just like, if you want to regulate it, we can go on birth control and do this and that. Yep. But now there's so many apps, I would recommend when your daughter starts to get one of the apps. So there's
Yeah.
MyFlow, Lively, Stardust. There's so many different ones. A
Yeah.
lot of them allow you to track your symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them even give you like a recommendation. If you're having cramps or something, it might say, "Oh, try avoiding dairy this week or gluten," and see
Yeah.
what happens. So that's really helpful. And of course, now I think it's just a wellness topic that you can follow influencers on social media. You can get books to read. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think there were books on this 20 years ago.
Mm-mm. No.
um, which is why we didn't learn it,
Yeah.
when we were young. But now, especially for like the next generation, it's going to be so much better for them if they learn
Yeah.
it early.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. So you mentioned we have 4 phases. Do you want to touch on like what's actually happening hormonally in each one of those phases?
Sure. So your hormones, they rise and fall based on where you are in the cycle.
Mhm.
Again, I'll start with your period because it's the easiest one. When you have your period, your hormones are at their lowest level. So the estrogen, the progesterone, like all the things you hear about, they're all at their lowest level. The week after your bleed, the levels are starting to go up, right? That's when you're getting your energy back, you're starting to feel better. The week in ovulation, you have a surge of first LH and FSH, then testosterone and estrogen. So that's like,
Okay.
the peak surge for those. And then in the luteal phase, your progesterone takes over.
Okay.
Um, and that builds the uterine lining, right? That's the pregnancy hormone. So it's preparing your body for pregnancy.
Yeah.
And then just before your period, your progesterone will drop, and then your estrogen will drop. And that hormone drop causes you to bleed every month.
Okay.
So that's basically what's happening in your cycle.
Awesome. So kind of caveat to that too, when we're doing, just so people can understand. So when we're taking like a birth control, it mimics you actually being pregnant.
Yes.
So you want to touch on that for just a hot second on how like that interacts with everything?
Yeah. So when you go on a birth control pill or patch, anything hormonal, you turn off those hormone fluctuations. So instead of your estrogen rising and your testosterone rising and then your progesterone rising and falling, you get like the same dose of hormones every day in the
Yeah.
pill. And I talk about this a lot on my social media and stuff, but a lot of women on the pill feel kind of disconnected from their body.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Their intuition is gone, their
Yep.
libido is gone, they can have anxiety and depression, they can gain weight, and all of these things are because you don't have those hormone fluctuations.
Yes.
Right. And so, again, going back to the healthcare providers, when you go to your doctor and you say, "Oh, I'm having terrible cramps and heavy bleeding and this and that every month," they will say, "Well, you can go on the birth control pill."
Yeah.
Right. It used to be a short term solution, like, I don't want to get pregnant this year. Right. Like,
Yep.
but now people are on it for 10, 15, 20 years,
Yep.
and they've just shut off their own internal hormonal system, and they
Yes.
feel it. They can't explain it, but they feel off, like they don't feel like
Yep.
themselves.
Yep. 100%. Personal story for me, I started, um, let's see, I started with, it was low estrogen, I think. That was the first one that I had. And I started that when I was like 15, 16, like really early. My sister, kind of same thing. Like she actually started her period when she was 10. So they put her on birth control like pretty early on. She ended up having really bad side effects with that. So she ended up getting off of it. Um, but I ended up having really, really bad aura migraines where like I would not be able to see. My tip of my nose would go numb. My fingers would go numb. Like anytime they came on, it was so bad. And bless my mom, she was like, oh, it's probably your birth control is doing it. And I'm like, no, like the birth control is supposed to be blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Cause like that's what we're told. And my mom, like I said, like bless her intuition because she was like, no, Linz, like it's probably the birth control. So for years, I just dealt with the migraines. Excedrin was my best friend. And come to find out, maybe not even 5, 6 years ago, I started seeing a new gynecologist who was a PA as well. And she was like, Lindsay, like, that's not okay that is happening to you. And I was like, well, I've just been doing it for so long. Like, it's just part of what we're doing. And she was like, no. And so she's like, you probably have really high estrogen levels, like just naturally. And so by doing that birth control, she's like, you just need a progesterone only birth control because your estrogen is already like high sensitivity. And as soon as I got on one that was just progesterone only, I did the pills instead of like, there's so many horror stories of all the other progesterone things. My migraines ended up going away. I have not had a migraine since.
Awesome.
So
yeah. And I had migraines too. Mine were caused from lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And I always had my pain medications in my purse,
Yep.
like, and now they're
Yep.
gone. They're like, one day I randomly, I was like telling my husband, I'm like, I haven't had a headache in like 6 months now.
Yes. Yeah. So I share similar things with anytime people are like, oh, I have migraines. I was like, oh, let me help you. Like, let me help you figure it out. So, okay, let's get back to the questions. But thank you for talking about birth control pills because I feel like that's pretty pertinent with a lot of women. So, okay, so energy levels and brain chemistry, we kind of sort of hit on that a little bit, but how do they tend to shift across those 4 phases?
So again, your energy is low when you have your period for obvious reasons. One, you're bleeding,
Yeah.
And in the ovulation phase, your energy is super high. And in the other 2 phases, it's kind of, it's going up in follicular and coming down in luteal phase. So related to energy is exercise, right? So the best exercises in the cycle is cardio in the follicular phase. In ovulation or around the time of ovulation, you want to do like your high intensity interval workouts or your boot camp style workouts or like the longest, endurance run if you're an runner or anything like that. In the PMS week, you don't want to raise your heart rate too much. So you want to do like strength training with slow reps, right? You want to do Pilates, things like that. And then again, on your bleed, you can go for a walk, you can do yoga, you can rest. When you're having really heavy bleeding, I wouldn't push yourself to go to the gym on that day because you're just going to stress your body out and cause more problems.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So, what are some signs that a woman can look for if she is living against her cycle instead of working with her cycle?
So the first thing to do is just to start tracking your cycle and your symptoms. You should be bleeding about, they say 28 to 32 days, in between bleeds. And it should only last about 5 days with 2 days being heavy bleeding. Okay. So if you're having more heavy bleeding than that, or if your cycles are a little bit more irregular or longer, that can be checked. Okay. Also gauge your symptoms. So again, just start tracking. You don't have to change anything, but just start realizing like, what symptom are you getting every week before your period? Are you yelling at everybody? Are you having mom rage? Are you not sleeping? Are you like, what is the thing? Are you bloated? Your jeans don't fit. Like, what is it that's coming up? And you'll start to notice patterns.
Okay.
And so without even changing anything, if you just become aware of your cycle and your symptoms, that's the most important step. And then from there, you can say, okay, well, I'm having a lot of cramps. What foods cause cramps and what foods eliminate cramps? Right. Or, I'm having bloating. Do I have gut issues? Do I have, other GI things that I need to worry about? Do I need to get checked? Right. And you should always, of course, get checked. But a lot of times the PMS symptoms get chalked up to just being normal, being a woman and just deal with it kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So my first advice would be start tracking and then get in touch with, either a GYN who's, studied nutrition, or a functional medicine doctor, who's does lifestyle stuff in addition to the medicine, or a health coach. Get in touch with somebody and ask some questions.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So for women who are listening and are, curious about everything that we're talking about, what are some simple ways that they can actually like start syncing their lifestyle with their cycle?
So another thing we've been trained to do very early on is ignore our bodies, right? And so you need to start listening to your body again, and you need to, it's telling you what it needs, because cycle syncing and living in that way is very intuitive, right? Like,
Yes.
your body's asking for rest when you have a period. Take the rest.
Yep.
Your body's more social when you're ovulating. So go out and, plan a fun night out with your friends or this and that. Like, you have to really start asking, what does my body need? Or what is my body telling me with these symptoms? And there are 4 things that I found that if you start making simple changes to, they can make a whole big difference. And those are nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, and better sleep.
Okay.
And if you work on those things, you will see improvement in lots of areas of your life.
Awesome. Okay. And then you kind of touched on this earlier with nutrition, and you mentioned having like the heavier, heartier foods during your actual bleed. What are some other nutritional shifts that we can do throughout the month?
So one of them is eat raw foods in the ovulation phase. So lots of raw fruits and vegetables, like
Okay.
salads and smoothies are good. In the follicular phase, you want more lighter, like sauteed vegetables, like a zucchini or nothing too heavy.
Okay.
In the luteal phase, which would be that PMS week, you need extra magnesium. So dark
Good.
leafy greens, dark chocolate. You need extra B vitamins. So things like chickpeas or, some of the whole grains have B vitamins, things like that.
Yeah.
And again, when you bleed, you need iron, you need zinc, and warm foods. Your body's just going to be craving warm foods at the time because it's your winter
Yes.
season.
Got you. All right. Thanks for that. And then you also mentioned about sleep, and you mentioned with the workouts with, HIIT exercises causing more stress. Can we talk about like the sleep and the stress components with the PMS symptoms?
Yeah. So if you're having stress, it's raising your cortisol level, right? Which
Mhm.
promotes, 1, weight gain, especially around the abdomen area.
Yes.
2, it messes with your sleep. And that's why you're up at 3 a.m.
Yes.
wondering, where the lost library book is, or how you're going to
Yep.
pay the overdue bill or whatever.
Yep.
That cortisol is keeping you up at 3 a.m. Like, there's a reason you're up at that time.
Yes.
Stress messes with your insulin resistance and your sugar, right? And so you're craving more sugary foods, more unhealthy foods.
Yeah.
If you're not sleeping, then you're drinking caffeine, right? So,
Yes. Exactly.
um, which can, affect your stress levels and all of that. So all of these things kind of play in together. Um, you're a whole person. You're not little parts of
Right.
it. Like, oh, my sleep is this and my exercise is totally unrelated and this and that. You're a whole person. And if you're not taking
Right.
care of yourself, your body's going to let you know.
Yeah, it will. I often tell people like our bodies naturally always want to go back to homeostasis. And if you keep ignoring these signs, like eventually your body will go silent. And then you really, really, really have to try to get back those signals. And it can be a rough road once you get to that point. So, yeah, absolutely. So,
Yep.
for the high functioning women, for busy moms, women working all the time who feel like really overwhelmed, what are some very simple, maybe 1 to 3 steps that they could start doing this month outside? You mentioned tracking, but outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that they can start doing?
So the first thing is, track your cycle, track your symptoms. You don't need a whole life overhaul. Like, I get it, right? I'm a working mom. I have 3 kids. I'm a PTA parent. I get all these things. I know you're busy. I'm busy. But you can start with 15 minutes a day,
Yeah.
right? Like, are you taking time to even do a short yoga session for 15 minutes a day? Um,
Yeah.
are you chopping up some vegetables that you can have with lunch or dinner or a snack or something? That doesn't take long. It takes a little bit of planning, like take 15
Right.
minutes to plan out your grocery list, or 15 minutes to chop vegetables ahead of time, or fruit to, wash it and keep it ready so it's just there ready to eat. Um,
Yes.
you could take 15 minutes to do meditation or deep breathing exercises, right? Just to calm your mind, calm your stress. Um, and once you start doing one thing and you feel better, and then you'll have more energy and you'll have more clarity, so you're not wasting time doing, procrastinating or whatever, then
Right.
you can add on other things, right? But I just say start with one thing at a time.
Okay.
Even if it's 15 minutes a day, just start and stick with it. um, and that's how I started too. I didn't do like a whole life overhaul. I started with my diet, then I added in the exercise, then I added in like the stress reduction things, and then it was like, self learning, self help, mental focus and clarity and spirituality and all that stuff came later.
Yeah.
So it's pick one thing,
Yeah.
start with it, and then you will have energy to do more.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So I love where we're going with this because so much of the hormone healing really comes back to like learning and listening, like you said, to your body, working with it instead of pushing against it. So I just wanted to put in here that that's also something that I focus on in the program that I have as well, which is why you're here too, because we're in similar fields. So mine is the balanced hormonal healing journey, and we look at just everything that you just mentioned. So we look at nervous system work, we look at lifestyle habits, we look at hormones, health together, and instead of just trying to address symptoms in isolation, we kind of do this whole body approach. So if anyone's listening and you're someone who really feels that disconnect that we've been talking about from your body, and you're dealing with these hormonal symptoms and you feel like you're in this chronic stress mode and you're just absolutely stuck there, then you can pop over to my website as well at lindseyalexis.co/balanced with a D. And all of that information is there on what my program kind of entails and what that looks like too. So Amy, what are some of the most like common PMS symptoms that you often see in women?
Okay, there's a lot.
What
um,
are like the top five? Let's do the top five.
so cramping,
Okay.
bloating, irritability, acne, and maybe low libido.
Okay. Fair enough. Um, so when someone has more intense symptoms, like you mentioned earlier, like the heavy bleeding or severe cramps that take them out for the day, or extreme mood swings where they're like irritable at their kids or their spouse, what might that be like signaling in their body that's going on?
It's just a hormonal imbalance. So I don't know if it's a stress hormone or your estrogen or your progesterone, but something's off.
Okay.
And again, if you start with those 4 basic things, you will see improvement, right? Like, I changed my diet and my exercise to improve my PMS symptoms. I didn't expect my migraines to go away and my irritability to go away and
Yeah.
my sleep to improve, right? Like, I didn't expect all of that. It just kind of came out as a result. So I would just pick like the one symptom that's bothering you the most,
Okay.
right? Like, if you're breaking out into acne every month, there are certain foods that cause acne, right? And there are
Yes.
certain things that you can eat to keep your health, skin healthy
Yeah.
and glowing. And so I would just pick one thing, maybe pick one symptom
Yeah.
and learn about it, research it, ask people, and then fix that one thing, right? It doesn't take a long time. And then once that's fixed, then you can, okay, move on to the next one. What's the next thing that's bothering me? What's the next
Yeah.
thing that's bothering me? So don't try to do it all at once, because then we get overwhelmed and we feel like a
Yeah.
failure, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And like you mentioned too, typically when you go after that one thing, all these other things back here actually start coming back into alignment. So then you're not actually like just tackling the one thing, even though that is where your focus is. The rest start to, again,
Yeah.
going back to homeostasis. Like that's just what your body is designed to do. So cool. Awesome. Um, I don't remember if at the beginning you mentioned how long it took you to notice, things shifting, but I often experience a lot of women, especially women close to me, who try something and then they only try it for like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and they're like, oh, it's not working. So now I need to do something different. So, how long do you typically recommend, like, for women to actually start noticing these things? What's the habit like? Like, how long before they actually can be like, oh, yeah, this is really working with whatever this is?
So there's a couple of things there. One, it takes 3 to 4 weeks for your body to accept a new habit or a new routine, right? So you have to stick with it for 3 to 4 weeks. When I work with the ladies on their hormones, they're starting to see results at about the 1 month mark.
Okay.
And by 4 months, sometimes there's some completely symptom free. So you do have to give it some time to work. It's not going to be overnight. Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
I typically tell people this was something I learned, and feel free to kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but every organ in your body has a different cellular regeneration that happens, like a rate. So I was like, I always tell people, like, your skin, like the top layer of your skin regenerates like very, very quickly because you got to get bacteria off and things like that. Whereas like other organs that are deeper, like your heart, the cells of your heart and stuff, like they take longer to regenerate. Or maybe your GI system, like the acid in that, like burns through that really quickly. So doing something for just a couple weeks isn't going to see the greater effects, because at maximum, I think your entire body regenerates every 6 months, if I'm correct, like on a full cellular level. But most of them is only like 3 months long before you start seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely, like I said, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
I would say at least stick with it for a month.
Yeah.
And if you're not seeing results in a month, or starting to see results in a month, then you can try something different. But after 3 to 4 weeks, you should start to see improvement, if not resolution. I mean, I don't expect that in a month, but
Yeah.
you should start seeing improvement for sure.
Okay. Cool. So what we talked about, like what to do to help things. What do you see a lot of women doing that actually make these symptoms a lot worse?
So, as a mom, especially a mom of multiple kids with busy activities and schedules and things,
Yeah.
we are not taking care of ourselves, right? We are running on the sweet treats, the caffeinated beverages.
Yeah.
We are not sleeping.
Yep.
We've given up our exercise routine. A lot of women give it up after they have kids, saying, oh, I don't
Mhm.
have time.
Yep.
Guess what? You can work out with your kids. You can go to classes where, I'm part of a local fitness group where the moms come in their stroller, right? With the kids in
Yeah.
the stroller, and they do like stroller bar workouts and,
Aw, that's awesome.
things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, but the moms, we just don't take care of ourselves. And I was that mom.
Yeah.
So it's not a fault of anybody. I think it's just the way society is and our culture is and everything. Like, we are just taught to go, 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 put the kids in all the activities, cook a homemade meal, clean this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
And we have to remember to take care of ourselves first. So, one of the things that I tell my clients often is, when you travel on a plane, the first thing they tell you is put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others.
Yes.
And I think we have to remember that as moms in all areas of our life. Like, you know, we need to take care of ourselves so we have the energy to take care of the kids in the
Absolutely.
house and everything else that's going on.
Yeah. And I think too, something that I talked with one of my other groups this morning was we, for generations now, we have been raised as people pleasers and overgivers and, do everything for everybody all the time. Like, say yes to as many things as possible and then worry about what happens later. And then this is where we see a lot of women like go into adrenal fatigue and like not even know that they're right there, So, yeah, I feel that. And like you said, especially as moms too. So,
Yeah.
okay. We kind of hit on all this, so I'm just gonna, in my notes, the next section. So I'm just gonna briefly have you touched on this one more time. So you mentioned productivity and creativity being best during your ovulation, right? The week of ovulation.
So it fluctuates. So your creativity is high in the follicular phase.
Okay.
So let's talk about like if for a woman entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing project management. So in your follicular phase, that's when you're creative and you want to think up new ideas and like new plans and new projects and things like that.
Okay.
Ovulation, when you're most social and most communicative, is when you want to ask the questions, network, collaborate, like do all those things with other people. The
Okay.
luteal phase is, if you've heard of nesting, it's kind of like get stuff done.
Yeah.
So that's when you want to check off your to-do list and like finish off a project,
Okay.
get the things done, because you'll actually be more inclined to like check off your to-do list at that time.
All right.
And then if you follow the 4 seasons, in the winter, it's kind of like a rest and reflection phase.
Okay.
So after the harvest, right, you don't plant seeds right away. You let the soil
Right.
recover and rest. And it's the same thing with your body. So you take that menstrual week as reflection, like what went right this month, what didn't go right this month, what can we change for
Yeah.
next month. And so that's kind of like your workflow management throughout the cycle.
Awesome. Okay. Another thing I'll add to that too. I don't know if you do this with your clients as well, but I often have women like align with the lunar phases
Mm-hmm.
as well. Okay. So we talk about the full moon versus the new moon and like building and then letting go. And so our hormonal cycles are supposed to mimic the moon too. And there's two sets of women. You have the one who bleed with the full moon and the ones who bleed with the new moon. And I go and I tell this is where my spirituality comes in, but this is like I think it's like the more productive, entrepreneurial type women bleed with the full moon, if I remember correctly. And then the healers and the guides and all of those people bleed with the new moon. So it's not wrong to be in either. And then sometimes in life, if you're focusing more on like family and stuff, it'll actually shift between one or the other depending on what season of life you're in, which I find super awesome and amazing. And it lights my soul on fire to like connect,
Yeah.
spirituality and the physical side of things as well too. So
Yeah.
again, helping with that creativity and things too. So
Yeah.
okay. We talked about workouts and things too, and like when to be social versus when to rest. So I'm going to switch over to the women who are in that perimenopause phase and in that menopause, that beginning menopausal phase. And, what are they looking at that is happening during these transitions?
Yeah. So syncing with your cycle can also help with perimenopausal symptoms.
Okay.
So when I was in my like 39, 40, 41-ish, I was starting to have hot flashes and that brain fog and irritability. And then I learned about cycle syncing. And so now I'm in my late 40s and I have less symptoms now.
Yeah.
I don't have the hot flashes. I'm not as irritable. I don't have the brain fog. I have more muscle tone, which helps with metabolism and things,
Yeah.
right? That slows down in menopause. So I'm actually less symptomatic now in my late 40s than I was in my early 40s. I think
That's
because
awesome.
I've been doing this for 5 years now and I've just been living in tune with my body and giving it what it needs.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
yeah, hopefully it'll stay that way.
Yeah.
But it's good for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's great because you hear a lot of women, again, like, "Oh, hot flashes are, like, just a thing," and, all this stuff, and I'm like, "No, it's not." Like, you should look into that.
Yes.
So what lifestyle changes still help women who are going through, this part of the transition?
So it's the same thing, right? I'm sure you've heard the perimenopause influencers. They're all talking about eat 100 grams of protein a
Oh,
day,
yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
strength training. Wear your weighted vest when you go for a walk, and do
Yeah.
the strength training. And
Some of it is
um,
really extreme, and I'm like, "Listen now,
yeah,
slow it down. You're gonna make us overwhelmed."
right. Well, you don't have to do all of it, but yes,
Yeah.
you do need strength training, right, to build
Yeah.
your muscle, your bone density.
Yeah.
You need the protein again to build muscle.
Yes.
When you build muscle, you boost your metabolism, which normally slows down in menopause. Um, if you're exercising and not eating too many sugars and processed foods, you're sleeping better.
Yep.
Right. So all of these things, again, they're all intertwined and related, even in perimenopause and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great too, because you're setting that foundation for once the menopause is actually done, and you live out the rest of your years, you've already set that stronger foundation for you too, which is great.
Yep.
Okay, so we did talk about, the hormonal birth control. So as far as that classification of women, how can they practice the cycle syncing as well?
So for them, I tell them to use the moon, the lunar cycle. Um, or, I mean, the other option is if you're just not feeling right on the birth control, there are non hormonal birth control methods that you could
Yes.
use, right?
Yep.
Especially if you're really tracking your cycle and your ovulation and you're testing like the LH strips and all of that.
Yeah.
You're only fertile for about, I think it's like 5 days out of the
Yeah.
whole month,
Hmm.
right? So if you're taking non hormonal birth control practices during that time, you don't have to be on the pill.
Right.
And if
Yep.
you're on it for your symptoms, again, you don't have to be on it. There are other
Yeah.
things we can do for the symptoms, which you probably have not been told before. So this might be new
Exactly.
information.
Exactly. Awesome. Good to know. Um, let's see. Just going through. Okay, we also talked about exhaustion, inflammation, and being disconnected from your body as a female. So, how do you think understanding your cycle helps you rebuild that connection with yourself?
Um, I think between all the symptoms and the exhaustion and the stress and everything else, and I hear this all the time, like moms feel like they've lost their identity,
Yes,
but they don't know who they are anymore, or they say
100%.
they've lost their pink. Like I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I've
I
lost my
haven't.
pink.
I haven't,
So
but
that actually comes from flamingos. So when flamingos are
oh,
born,
oh yeah.
they are not pink, they're gray, and they become
Right.
pink from the foods that they eat. And
Yes.
then when a flamingo is nursing their young, they become gray again because all the nutrients are going into the milk for the
I did
babies.
not know that.
And so a common thing that some of the women say is, I've lost my pink.
Yeah.
Well, when you
Okay.
nourish yourself and you take care of yourself, you get your pink back, you will find yourself, your passions will
Mhm.
return,
Mhm.
your joy for life will return. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think like you said earlier too, putting that oxygen mask on first is really something that needs to be shifted in our brains because we're just so hard driven on giving, giving, giving that it's like, you know,
Yeah.
you'll continue to be disconnected if you don't reconnect with yourself first. And then it's no good for no anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can say that from personal experience. And I've
Yeah.
heard stories of other women that I've interviewed on my podcast too. Like everyone says the same thing. They were in this
Yeah.
like survival mode, zombie mode, whatever you
Me
want to
too.
call it. And then all of a sudden they started taking care of themselves. And then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I felt better. I felt happier. I,
Yeah.
I started doing my hobbies again. So yes, it can
It's a game
happen.
changer.
And I think so many women feel this. It's so common that you're not alone.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so if out of everything we've talked about today, if there's one thing you wish that every woman understood about her hormones, what would that one thing be?
We are cyclical beings, and you will not be told this by your doctor, but you need to learn to listen and follow that cycle if you really want to thrive in life.
Okay. And then kind of tipping off of that too, what is the like biggest transformation that you have seen when women actually do start working with their cycle instead of fighting it? Like what's the biggest thing?
So the one comment that I hear most often is, "I feel like a new woman."
Oh, love that.
Um, yeah, they people feel so much better. One, their physical symptoms are gone. Two, they have more energy to do the things that they need to do and want to do. And three, you have more gratitude and more joy and more just an appreciation for all things.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so before we wrap up, again, where can the listeners go to contact you and download your awesome wellness guide?
So I'm pretty active on social media. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at The Wealth of Wellness LLC. Um, I also have a YouTube channel, a podcast, all kinds of things. My free resources linked on all of those pages. So grab it, DM me, say hello. I would love to hear from you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. And thank you, Amy, for sharing all of your wonderful knowledge and insights today. Um, If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Healing Her Feminine or check out Amy's podcast as well. And that way you never miss a future conversation about hormone health, nervous system healing, and reconnecting with your body. And I will see you guys in the next one.